This is Miss Brandi Mitchell. She is a history teacher at Coconut High School. Ma'am, how are you?
I'm good.
So I had you last year.
Yes.
Ethan has you now.
Yes.
I really enjoyed your course. Ethan, what's your thoughts on your course?
I'm loving it so far. I've learned a lot.
Good.
Absolutely. Well, we both thank you for coming on. We know you, so it's a little bit of a different dynamic for the interview.
Yeah.
Yes.
We always start the same way. Where did you grow up?
Well, my dad worked in retail, so I lived in several different states on the East Coast, and then my family moved back here when I was in third grade, so I've been here ever since.
Which states did you live in?
Maryland, Delaware, North Carolina, Louisiana.
Wow. So a lot of different varieties.
Yes. And then Galax in between, because my grandparents lived there, so in between moves, we would stay there for a little while.
What did he do in retail?
He was the manager of like department stores that don't exist anymore, but he was good at his job, so they would send him to a problem store, and he would be there for a year and a half or so, and then he would fix things, and they'd move him somewhere else.
Yeah, okay. Did you have a favorite state that wasn't Virginia?
I lived in a big neighborhood in Maryland where we had sidewalks, which is something we don't really have around here, not in like neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And I walked to school, and I had friends in the neighborhood, so that was nice. It's a lot different than around here.
Yeah.
I also liked Louisiana. We lived in Slidell, which is 45 minutes outside of New Orleans. And then we used to go back every year and stay with our old neighbors during Mardi Gras. So, which is actually, there are lots of family-friendly events and
really.
parades during Mardi Gras. It's not all Bourbon Street. And
Yeah. Did you ever go to the French Quarter
yes.
during Mardi Gras?
Yes.
What was that like?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, were you young or was this later on?
I was young, so middle school,
Yeah.
elementary, middle school, yeah. So there are shocking things all day, every day during
Yeah.
Mardi Gras,
Yeah.
right? Like how people are dressed and stuff. It smells very bad, especially, it smells kind of bad all the time because of the sea level thing, but
Right.
it smelled really bad during Mardi Gras, trash everywhere, you know, but it's also, it's a cool city, very historical, and just, I mean, just different than, you know, the small town we live in. So, lots to do, lots of, you know, I don't know, parades and just seeing different people and booths and, you know, crafts and stuff like that.
So what was the decision that led you back to Carroll County?
My dad wanted to get out of retail, and there was a business for sale, which is a Mega on Main Street, and he bought that from the gentleman that owned it.
Okay, so he didn't start a Mega.
He did not start Omega, no.
Okay.
No. It used to be more of a church and office, church Bible store until he took it over. He got more into the office supplies, and then he did start the printing that they do now.
And what year did he take it over?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to do some math. When I was in third grade, oh, my gosh, I don't know how to do the math. Or 93, 92, early 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a math teacher.
We know now that you were a big basketball player. Were you big into basketball while you were moving around all these different states? Is that something you
No.
actively tried? No.
No, so actually, I don't remember, now that I think about it, I don't remember doing anything while I was moving around. And then when we moved back here, I mean, we did piano, and I took ballet lessons, and we did art lessons, and played lots of sports.
Was the dance center open?
No, I took ballet in Galax,
Okay.
and she's not there anymore either.
What elementary school did you go to? Was it
Hillsville. The old building, though.
So where the race center's at now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have good memories of elementary school.
Did you have a particular teacher in elementary school that you favored?
I think probably not at the time, but looking back, I really liked Miss Ridge. She was more just kind of structured, and she wasn't mean, but she was kind of, you know, strict.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked her.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Ethan have asked this question a few times. What's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory.
We find it starts to get people to think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
My earliest school memory, and I don't know if this is my earliest one or not, but I was in kindergarten, and I was in kindergarten in Galax, and we were in this big, like, two-benched rocking horse thing and rocking back and forth, and this kid crawled under the thing to get something, and we rocked on her head. It didn't hurt her, but maybe that's my earliest memory.
Dramatic.
Yeah.
So you go from Hillsville to, was it the intermediate school at the time?
No, so Woodlawn.
Okay.
Woodlawn, okay.
Yeah, I went to Woodlawn for 6th and 7th grade. Actually, I was in 4th grade when they reconfigured the schools and shut some of the elementary schools down.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so I got to go to elementary school for another year. And then I went to Woodlawn for 6th and 7th grade, and the intermediate school for 8th and 9th grade. And then the high school 10th.
What was that like, jumping schools every few years.
Yeah.
And that includes your state.
Yeah. Well, I was used to that because I had been in like 8 different schools
Right,
before I was
yeah.
in 3rd grade. So it really wasn't that much of a shock. But I was glad to be in elementary school another year. And then it was a good transition. Like Woodlawn was a good transition from elementary school in between kind of your middle school years. I think probably a better transition than what our kids do now,
Yeah. So,
in my opinion.
Why do you think that? For?
I guess just because it gives it's 2 years and then 2 years rather than 3 before you're at the high school. So
Right.
I think the teachers are really they were good at transitioning you kind of into middle school and then the middle school to high school kind of.
if you could change the system now for your kids, would you?
I think if it was better for them, I would. I worry about my kids. I worry about my daughter because she's so shy and timid, but she's done really well. My son, I feel like, would be fine in any situation.
Did you start playing basketball immediately upon entering high school?
So I started playing
8th grade.
Yeah, I started playing like rec ball and AAU
Okay, yeah.
in elementary and middle school, and then I played 8th grade, and then as a 9th grader I played JV, played that for 2 years, and then started playing varsity in 10th grade.
And at an early age, did you figure out that you were good at basketball, or was that something that developed later
No,
on?
I was kind of a slow and steady, basketball player. I was kind of average, played rec ball and AAU, and then middle school, and then there was a lot of people that kind of peaked early, and I didn't, and so then I passed them later.
What did your practice regimen look like for basketball?
Playing with my brother in the driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly. Outside of scheduled practices that we had to go to. He was 4 years younger than me, and we would go outside and play for hours in the driveway.
Were there any particular drills that you favored, or was it just purely competition? I'm going to beat you, and you're going to beat me.
Yeah, we would play one-on-one, and then we did a lot of shooting competitions. Or I would just go out and work on my shooting form in the driveway by myself.
Do you remember your first varsity season and your first varsity game?
I remember my first varsity season, maybe not the first game, but I remember the first game I started, which was like 3 or 4 games in against Galax. So that was the first game I started. And, I was a sophomore. The seniors were, intimidating.
Yeah.
We had 2 juniors, and they were really nice. But yeah, I was really kind of timid and nervous. But I've always been the type that when I'm playing basketball, like on the court, I kind of forget everything else and just, do what I'm supposed to do. So,
Who was your coach?
Howard Mayo.
Okay.
Okay.
Were you the only sophomore on the team?
No, no. There was probably 3 or 4 of us. 5. There was 6 by the time we were seniors.
Do you regret anything from that first game? Something you wish you would have done differently?
No, I felt like I went out there and just did my best. I mean, it was kind of a little bit of a surprise, but I was happy for the opportunity.
Sure, yeah.
Were you very academic in school?
Not so much. We did not have as many like college classes like you guys have that are offered. There were a couple which I did take, but I mean, I was happy with A's and B's. I wanted to do well, and I worked hard. I'm not a very naturally intelligent person. I have to work hard for the things that I achieve. So.
You teach history now.
Yes.
Did you enjoy history then too?
Yeah, I liked history always. And then when I went to Hollins, there was a professor that I loved. I took most of his classes, which is mostly U.S. history.
Did you start to realize that you wanted to teach while you were in high school?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to teach because I wanted to coach.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you decide that you wanted to explore playing basketball in college?
Probably about my junior year. I loved basketball, and I knew I wanted to keep playing. And Hollins is Division III, so I wasn't, I probably could have gone, I could have gone to UVA at Wise on a partial scholarship, but I knew that I would play more if I went to Division III, and Hollins is a really good academic school, too, on top of that.
Did you get scouted out by Hollins?
Yes.
Okay. Did you play any other sports in high school, or was it just
I
basketball?
played softball.
Okay. Did you enjoy softball as much as you enjoyed basketball?
Yes, in different ways. I mean, I would pick basketball as my top sport, but I liked softball almost as much.
Absolutely. We know what the traditional college admissions process looks like. I mean, this year is obviously crazy, but in regular years, how does playing sports change that admissions process? Do you learn earlier? I'm sure you do.
I did not at Hollins, and I will tell you that my SAT scores were not the highest, and Hollins, again, they don't really care about athletes. Like, you're not going to get in because you're an athlete at somewhere like that. But the coach did, I'm pretty sure, go to admissions, and they were like, listen, I know she's borderline. I really would like her to come here. And so I really believe they took a chance on me.
Okay.
And then basically it's sink or swim when you got there, and thankfully I swam.
Awesome.
So
But
did
I had
you
to
know-
learn how to study and work really hard.
Did you know your last basketball season where you were going at that point?
Yes.
How did that change the way you played during that last season?
It didn't. I mean, we had really high goals. We wanted to win a state championship, and my team was good enough to have been able to do that. But it just wasn't in the cards for us. We were upset very early in the tournament. And what now we would consider the region tournament, it was different back then, so very early. So we just focused on that, and I focused on what I had to do for our team to be successful. Unfortunately, we weren't.
You see nowadays a lot of college coaches discourage athletes from committing early, maybe into junior year to college, because it demotivates them from performing the best that they can their senior year. Do you necessarily agree with that as someone who maybe committed before their senior season?
I think that it probably does take a lot of pressure, and more, not as much with me, but like watching the kids that have come through when I've been coaching. It's a lot of pressure. And when they know there's a college coach in the stands or a college scout in the stands, they are way different. Sometimes they're better and sometimes it's worse. So I think that if people that commit early, it's done and they can just go and play. They're not trying to impress somebody by the way they're playing or the way they're acting.
So take us through that last semester of high school and that first year of college, that transitionary period, because me and Ethan are about to go through that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting for us.
Yeah.
How did you manage? Did you work that summer? Did you get a full-ride scholarship to Hollins? How did that work out?
Yeah, so Hollins does not give athletic scholarships. So
Okay.
I got academic scholarships that I applied for. I was just like any other senior. I was ready to get out.
Yeah.
I did work. I worked for my dad, and actually he fired me one time because I gave him attitude. So he fired me and told me to go find another job, and I did, and it worked out in my favor. But I worked out at Cascade, which is a neighborhood out on
Cascade
off the
Mountain?
Parkway. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the pool.
Yeah, we were
And
talking
so,
about that.
yeah, I wasn't even a lifeguard. I was just a pool attendant.
Okay.
So basically, I got paid to like get a tan, and I had to clean the bathrooms and make sure people signed in. But so that was a great job. And then I did go back to work for my dad that summer. So, and then I wouldn't say I enjoyed high school that much. If I had not played basketball, I think I would have absolutely hated it. I was shy. I had a few friends, but I didn't enjoy high school. I was nervous to go to college, and I think that if I had been very far away, I probably would have come home. I probably wouldn't have made it. And the fact that I played basketball also helped me stay. Once I realized I really wasn't that far, Hollins is just in Roanoke. I was like, I can hop in my car and drive home if I need to. Like, I'm fine. And basketball was familiar to me. Even if my teammates were new and my coach was new, the game itself was familiar to me. So it was always comforting in that, really, especially in that fall when I would go to the gym and we would have workouts and stuff like that. Like, that's, part of what helped get me through. But I really became the person that I am in those 4.5 years that I was at Hollins.
So even while you're at college, you felt an attachment to Carroll County.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I came home a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that you wanted to come back here and teach after you graduated?
Yes. I didn't even interview anywhere else except for here in Carroll County. And I interviewed for a couple jobs here before I got hired. But
when you were in high school, did you have your eye specifically on Hollins, just looking around at colleges?
No, they came to me. I didn't really even know about it. But when the coach approached me after a game one night, and then we went and visited, and my mom loved it. She really wanted me to go there. UVA was really putting a lot of pressure on me to go there. And I think that when I went to tour the campus, I just fell in love with it immediately, even though I didn't admit it at first. But yeah, it was the right place for me to be.
How big is the school?
It's very small. It's about 800 students, undergrad.
And it is women's only.
It is all women's, yeah. Their grad program is co-ed, but their undergrad is all women.
What's that dynamic like as an undergrad?
Yeah, so it's not as strange as you would think it is. Guys are allowed on campus. If you have a boyfriend, they can stay, or people can visit. So it's not like, you don't see guys. But for me, and I'm a firm believer that men attract more attention than women in a lot of different settings, and the classroom setting is one of those. A lot of people may disagree with that, but you're not competing for that attention when you're in the classroom. And so that was nice. Yeah, it's just a different type of education, I guess.
We mentioned elementary school teachers that had an influence on you. Was there a specific professor? You mentioned one earlier.
Yes.
Maybe several professors that had a profound influence on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so there was actually a lady that I took a political science class with. It was called Big Mac World Attack, and it was about how corporations influence how the government makes decisions or how the government governs. And I really loved her. She was really strict and like, if you miss class, your grades dropping and stuff like that. But she was a great professor, and I, again, just really respected her, I guess, for kind of her expectations. I mean, she had high expectations for her students. And then Peter Coogan was another one. He ended up being my advisor, and he advised me on my thesis. And I took most of my history classes with him.
So you had to write a thesis for your bachelor's degree.
Yes.
What was it on? Do you remember?
The evolution of athletics at Hollins.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
How did you balance being an athlete while being a student? Because I imagine you had to miss class and stuff for games. And
Not too awful much. Again, at Division III, you don't miss class as much, because especially at a place like Hollins, because the emphasis is on academics.
Yeah, sure.
But sometimes. But our schools that were in our conference weren't too far away. We really only had a couple long trips every season to like Richmond and Virginia Beach, or the tournaments that we might go to. So, so it's nice that I didn't miss classes, but again, you have to learn how to manage your time. Because I had a job too.
Okay.
I wasn't, so two types of students go to Hollins. You have ones that are on a lot of financial aid, and you have students that can afford it, and I definitely could not afford it. So I had a work-study job. So, just balancing, time management and responsibility, but those are life skills that anybody needs later on. So, yeah.
Do you remember what that work-study job was?
Yeah, so my first 2 years, I worked in the gym. They placed you kind of based on the types of things that you did. So I worked in the gym, and I just either sat at a desk and made sure people didn't need help, or they signed into the weight room. And then our athletic trainer kind of recruited me to take an athletic training class with her so that I could actually help her in the training room, which actually worked out better with my schedule. I didn't work much during the basketball season, but I helped her, and I would actually go back to school during the preseason when the fall sports would come back, and I would help her in the spring if teams played longer after we got out of school. So I helped her in the training room, and then I did a lot of other kind of assistant type things for her.
That's neat.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to really feel grown up once you left?
Oh gosh, I still don't feel grown up sometimes. Yeah, so I would say it was a slow process from being a freshman to a senior. I think definitely by the time I was a senior, and then I had to go back an extra semester to student teach. And probably then, because then my teacher at Lord Botetourt only let me teach one class of his, but it was like my class. And so I guess probably about then. But I had to go to the grocery store by myself and get gas, and if I wanted to go to the mall or something, I could go and not ask my parents, and
Independence.
Yeah.
So you graduate Hollins, you had to stay an extra semester for student teaching. Did you immediately apply to a teaching position?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2005, my fourth year. I had all my requirements done, and then I just had to go back and do my student teaching, which just qualified me to teach. That was part of my teaching certificate, which was different. So, and then I came back home at Christmas, and I found a long-term sub job at Woodlawn it was called STEP, but it was the alternative education, like our race center. And I had 4 kids. They were tough kids, and I liked them. But and I was offered that job, and I said no, which was hard. But I knew that sometimes you get stuck in certain positions that you don't necessarily want to be in, especially if they feel like you're doing a good job, or you're not going to leave. And so it was hard to say no, but I said no. There was another job I wanted at Woodlawn, teaching U.S. history. I did not get that job. And then just so happened late in the summer, somebody left here, which kind of set off a chain reaction. And so there was a job open late in the summer when most people had already found jobs. And so there was only 3 people that interviewed, and I was chosen. And there were local people that helped me out that kind of spoke up and said, hey, she'd be good for this. And so, it always helps.
What did you do during that summer after school until you started that next fall?
Worked. Yeah, I worked at my dad's store, and still.
Because that's always been interesting for me. What do y'all do during the summertime?
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. What do you do now during the summertime?
Okay, so
And as a parent, it must be different than not having kids.
right. So the first year after I got hired was the only summer in my entire life that I can remember that I did not have anything that I had to do. And so I would sleep until noon every day, and my husband would. So that's after we got married. My husband would come, and we lived on the farm, and so his mom would make lunch every day. So he would come and wake me up, and then I would just get up and go eat lunch. But anyway, every other summer of my life has been filled with activities, whether I was playing stuff myself or going to basketball camps or whatever. And then, so the first summer after I got hired, I didn't have anything to do. But then the next summer I started helping with basketball. And I've always been very busy during the summer. There's been very little time for fun stuff.
When did you meet your husband?
I actually met him when I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
We did not start dating until I was a sophomore in college. And we dated a little bit that year, and then we stopped, and then we started dating again my junior year.
How did
the rest
that
is history.
happen? Because you were at an all-women's university.
Yep.
It's hard.
I met him here. He's from here.
Okay.
And so I met him playing basketball at the training center.
Okay. So
We used to play pickup ball on Sundays and Wednesdays.
and
So I
just
met him playing basketball there.
sparked from
So
there.
Yep.
did he come to see you, or did you come home on the weekends?
Both. Yeah, he would come to my basketball games, with my parents, or he would drive on the weekends, or I would come home.
Okay.
Was it hard doing a long-distance relationship like that?
I don't know, it's not really. I mean,
Yeah.
It's longer
It's-
distance.
it's-
You
right,
can't
I
see
mean-
each
It's
other
not long
immediately.
distance.
Right, yeah. I mean, we didn't see each other every day or anything, but no, it was fine. I mean, I had stuff I had to do, with classes and basketball and stuff, and I've always been pretty independent, anyway, kind of with that stuff. And he was fine too. He had a job and, working on the farm, and
Yeah.
it was fine.
So how long after college until y'all got married?
A year and a half. That was back during the day. Sorry, this is funny. That was back during the day when you had to pay for text messages.
Oh, yeah.
And so we would have, and then we got free nights and weekends. And so we could text after like 8 o'clock at night for free or call. You had so many minutes a month. So yeah, it made things harder because you didn't want to be charged for phone conversations or text messages. So you would have to wait till nighttime to talk to each
now
other.
you can talk to somebody
Anytime.
Oh, yeah.
anytime
Yeah.
you want to
yeah.
for free. So
Yeah.
I guess that does.
Looping back to that summer when you got your first job, was it nerve-wracking looking for a job and not having one?
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, I knew I didn't want to go anywhere else. So I guess I just got lucky that I didn't end up. If I hadn't have gotten that last job I interviewed for, I probably would have had to have thought about applying in other school systems around here.
We know now that you have a master's degree from UVA, I believe.
My master's is from Radford.
Radford, okay.
I have a certificate from UVA.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And that certificate allows you to teach U.S. history.
Dual enrollment, yeah.
Dual enrollment U.S. history, yes.
Yeah.
The class that Luke and I are taking.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
I'm
I've
taking
took,
now or
you're
have
taking.
took, right.
Yes.
When did you decide to go back to your master's degree and then that certificate?
Yeah. So I taught for about 2 years, and I decided to go back and get my master's just because I wanted more education. I really enjoyed college. I enjoyed learning more. And it's funny because you guys will find this out. The older you get, the more you will enjoy learning. And so, you're not forced to do it when you're in high school. It's up to you. So I just wanted to get more education. And so I went to Radford and got my master's degree. And also, other people who are doing it, who started before me, I talked to them about it. Right. And then, so you take a few classes with your friends, and then they kind of graduate because they started before you, and I end up finishing on my own. But so that was part of it. We have to do continuing education. We have to get points every so many years to relicense. Right. And so classes are the quickest way to get points. And so this grant is called the Teaching American History Grant. It has since been cut out by the government. You know how that goes. And so my mentor when I got hired was Robin Graham, and she taught in the classroom beside me, and she kind of took me under her wing and helped me through those first couple years because it's another sink or swim moment in your life. Like it's hard. And so she found this grant, and she was like, "Hey, let's do this." And so we did it together, and it was supposed to be a 5-year grant. We only did 3 years of it, but the point of the grant was to go and take college classes, graduate level classes, which we got from UVA, credits from UVA. I had to have 18 master's hours to teach this class. Right. They only gave us 15 because they didn't want to give us another master's degree. So they stopped it at 15 and gave us a certificate. And then I had to take one more class
Right.
on top of that. So, but she got me into it, and then we only got to do the 3 years of the classes. The 4th and the 5th year was actually supposed to be taking what we learned and bringing it back here and giving it, giving that knowledge or those teaching history strategies to other teachers, and we didn't get to do that part of it because it was cut out first. But it did allow me to be able to teach dual enrollment.
And did you take those classes on campus at Radford?
So we actually went, my master's degree was, yes, I think I had one online class back then. Online classes weren't big back then. So I think I had one online class. The rest of them I had to go to Radford for my master's. The grant for my certificate from UVA, we actually went to Abingdon to the Higher Ed Center,
yeah,
yes.
That's a nice place.
Yeah, so they would meet us there, which was nice.
And did you not have children at that point when you got your master's?
I had CC, my oldest daughter, during the time I was getting my master's, which was interesting.
That's
It's funny
busy,
because, there was one class that I took. We only met like 4 times, and so I was pregnant the first 2 times we met, and then I had her, and then I was not pregnant the last 2 times we met, so I'm sure people were like, wow. But yeah, so that was another added, level of difficulty.
And that was your first child too, so I'm
Yes.
sure that must be a unique
Yeah. Adjusting to
How
it
did
all.
that work out?
Right. Yeah. So I'm a little bit of a control freak, a little bit OCD and stuff like that. So it was hard, but I have a lot of support. I have a wonderful husband. I have my parents who always helped out, and my mother and father-in-law who always helped out. So we have a great support system.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, too, I've been able to do as much coaching as I've done and a lot of the other things that I've done because I have that.
Yeah. Was the coursework very rigorous, the time dedication?
For the master's, yes, it was. The grant, not so much. But when you have kids and you have a full-time job, and I'm still writing papers and doing research and stuff like that. So, at that point in your life, yes, it's not as hard as like a bachelor's degree, I would say.
Were there any specific strategies that you learned to balance all that work? Maybe like having a planner, and I'm sure you learned some of those skills.
Yeah, so I've always, I have a calendar on my desk. I hardly ever look at it. I write stuff down and then don't look back at it. I've always been pretty good about just kind of keeping things in my head. And of course, the syllabus helps from courses. Those are your Bibles
Maps.
or whatever, your maps for those classes. So yeah, the syllabus always very important to keep up with.
So, during your time getting your master's degree, you were working where?
Here.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yep,
you
I
had
was
that
teaching.
job here at this point.
Yes.
When did you start with your dual enrollment program? What year? Do you remember?
No. About 2000. Let's see. She was born in 2010. About 2000. They actually. So this is another thing I forgot. My master's and the grant program actually overlapped.
Okay.
On top of that, so I graduated with my master's 2012, I guess, and I had started the grant about 2011, something like that.
So at a time you were taking both UVA and Radford classes. So that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have no interest in getting my doctorate.
Yeah.
No.
Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Make it be known. You mentioned your first year after teaching, you started helping coach. Was that basketball?
Yeah. Actually softball too. So they came to me and they needed an 8th grade softball coach. So the first 3 years that I was teaching, I coached 8th grade basketball and softball for 3 years. And then I quit coaching softball and I moved up to coach JV for 5 years. And then I was Coach Motley's assistant for the last 10 years.
Okay. And he's since retired?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on him retiring?
I think after watching him go through the season, I think I agree with him on the things that he said about it's just being time, and I decided, at the same time that it was time for me to go also, and be able to do other things and watch my kids and not have to continue to make the sacrifices that you do to coach at that level. Even if you're an assistant, I mean, I'm still there all the time, all the time that he is. So yeah, and I think too, it's a good time if there's going to be a transition. It's a good time for that.
So
based on the kids that just left or that are going to graduate and the kids coming in.
It was a joint decision?
No. No, I mean, it's not something we discussed. I started out the season contemplating about whether I wanted to apply for the head coaching job. And I think I was, again, kind of because of my personality, I think I was trying to talk myself into that because it's just like, let's move forward. This is the next step in my life. And then I got to think, I don't think I want to do this.
Yeah, I get that.
So get some more time to spend with your kids. And
Yep. And and like I said, do other things, be able to go home. I mean, basketball season is a long season.
Right.
You know, November through March, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a weird
Yeah.
transition for you.
It will be,
sure.
yeah. But I'll still be involved. I mean, I've been coaching rec basketball and AAU basketball since I was in high school. I actually helped Coach Mayo coach the 9th grade boys team because we used to play in different seasons when I was a senior in high school.
Yeah,
So I helped him coach that team, and I coached rec ball teams when I was in high school. I had an AAU team when I was in high school. I had another AAU team when I was in college. And then when I came back, I picked up another AAU team.
Wow.
And then now I coach my kids' AAU teams. And I also run the AAU program here. I took on that responsibility a couple years ago because nobody else was doing it. I didn't necessarily want to or have time. But now I will have more time to put towards that. So that's good.
Speaking of kids, I get you were a teacher before you had children.
Yes.
So how did having children affect your teaching?
Yeah, I think that, you kind of realize that because your job is to come in here every day and maintain discipline in a classroom and make sure that they're learning something. But you guys have stuff going on too, and so I think when I had kids and, sometimes I get up in the morning and maybe somebody spit up all over me and I have to go change, and it just starts my day off bad. And I think it really helps us relate a little bit more to y'all. Now, don't get me wrong, there are students that have excuses every day that, I'm sorry, you have to suck it up and move on. But, sometimes there are situations where you're like, all right, maybe I need to give them a break. Sometimes I need y'all to give me a break.
To kind of flip that question,
Yeah.
How did teaching affect you raising your children? Feel like you had more understanding with kids?
Maybe even more strict.
Yeah.
Because you don't want your kids to act
I know.
because you have.
So that's true. So, we have very good students who come in here every day and do what they're supposed to do, and we have students that don't. And, so I think more than anything, I know how I want my kids, what kids I want my kids not to act like,
Right.
So, probably more so strict on them sometimes when maybe I wouldn't be if I had another job.
This is a somewhat similar question. How has coaching high schoolers changed how you coach smaller children, maybe 6th, 7th, 8th grade?
Yeah. So, I still have high standards for them, but you have to kind of adjust your, the ability level. I actually enjoy the younger ones when I'm coaching more than the older ones. Now, teaching, I don't want the younger ones.
Yeah.
I like the high school kids. But I think that those younger ones appreciate you more. I mean, they'll run up and hug you. The high school kids are just,
You're
yeah, whatever. And so, just more like basic skills and the way you talk to them and just trying to get them excited about the game, make sure that they're having fun and they want to keep coming back. Whereas the older kids, now it's time to get down to business and we've got to work on this stuff and you've got to be, serious at practice and we got to get this stuff done. So,
have you seen that change in temperament deter some students from playing the game as passionately as they once did?
Yes. And so, there have been people in our school program, in our AAU program, who maybe start that at too young of an age, and that runs kids off. Yeah. And some kids need that. Some kids don't at a young age, but I just hate to see kids quitting, before I feel like they would have if they had had a good experience with coaches.
Absolutely. You'll see a lot of times on social media that the number one cause of youth quitting sports is the ride home after a game or after a tournament.
Yeah.
Do you try to keep that in mind when you're coaching or even parenting?
Yes. So that has been very difficult for me. My kids don't always respond to me when I coach them as well as they would respond to someone else, my daughter especially. And we are a lot alike. So I really do try to kind of back off a little bit and not. And don't get me wrong, sometimes that happens. We have discussions on the way home. But if I see it's not going well, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to let this go and we'll talk about it tomorrow or, whatever. Yeah. So that definitely has changed.
I'm sure that is a pretty unique dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm one of those coaches. So you have two kinds of coaches when they coach their kids. You have the ones that maybe their kid's not very good, but they play all the time. Right. Or you have the kids, that you're harder on because you are their parent. And that's definitely me. And I know that about myself, but I'm definitely harder on my kids than I am the other kids on the team. And so I try to be aware of that. And
when they come up through the school system, how do you think that will be from the court to the classroom?
They are both great. I mean, my daughter works very hard. She's very concerned about her grades. I never have to check Power School because I know she's checking it every day. My son is too smart for his own good. He's very intelligent. So they're both going to be fine in sports and school. And I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure that is still going to be unique having them
Yeah.
in the classroom.
Yeah. My daughter doesn't want to listen to me very much, and I think just everything I say to my son goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So you teach U.S. history.
Yes.
We haven't talked about this yet. And sometimes people don't. They're not very interested in history.
Yes.
Which is sad to see because it is important.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
convey that importance to people who aren't very interested?
Yeah. And so, I mean, and I myself don't even like all periods of U.S. history. You know, I don't like the early stuff. But you get kind of after Civil War and Reconstruction, and then it gets more interesting to me. So, like, I get it, you know, and I get that some students don't like history at all. They're just taking it for the class or for the college credit. And so, you know, I do try to keep that in mind. And I also, and I don't know if y'all have ever noticed this, but, you know, I know we're learning about history, but there are things that we can learn from history and things that you can take into your life because you will be voters one day.
Right,
you know, you will be maybe making history one day.
We voted this past March.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, you know, I think those kinds of ideas and principles are important to learn, even if they don't remember dates or generals or presidents, but kind of taking those things out with them. And
What often happens often history just gets too bogged down. And you
Yeah.
realize it was real people doing real things. It was real
Yep.
stories. And it wasn't history to them. It was just
Real life.
Life.
what was going on at
Yeah.
that night. It was just they're
Yeah.
living life like we're living it today.
yeah.
So I think if you can portray that human aspect of it, I think you get through
Yeah.
a lot more to people. I
Yeah.
think you did a good job with that when you were lecturing, just making it seem more present,
Oh, well, thank you.
which I think is important because sometimes I mean,
Yeah.
dates and stuff. I mean, they are important. Dates are
Yeah.
important because
Yeah.
for categorizing stuff, and
Right.
I think sometimes just being able
Yeah.
to recall stuff factually, that's not gonna.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not that kind of person anyway. I don't like that myself. I'm not good at that myself. So.
Having an understanding is more
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
We've asked this question to several history teachers. Who's your favorite founding father and why?
All right. I would have to say Hamilton because of Hamilton, the Broadway production. I think hands down. When I discovered Hamilton, I just love it. And
Have you read the
Yeah.
book?
yes,
I think I remember you talking about
Yeah.
history books.
I actually taught a class at Governor's School at Wytheville during the summer, 2 summers in a row on Hamilton.
Really? That's neat.
Yeah. It was called my class was called the $10 Founding
when
Father.
did you stop teaching that class?
So it was before COVID.
Okay, because my group went through. I did it 3 years.
Yeah.
The year after COVID.
Yeah.
So
I had Max Puckett in my last class and Eden Phillips. Do you remember them? And Ashland's sister, Kaylee. That was.
we did. Do you know Jacob Spraker? We did a role playing in history class. He teaches up in Wytheville.
His name does sound familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't place him though.
But I think it was kind of like along that same vein. It was a history course. So
Yeah.
I forget which number it was, but I got, I think,
All those.
9 college credits for 3 summers
Yeah.
for it. So, I mean, for free.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the same course, but it was. I thought that program was great.
Yeah. I enjoyed doing it the 2 summers I did it. Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. You mentioned you don't like early American history.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. It's just not interesting to me. It's just
Really?
boring to me. I
That's-
don't know.
that's
I
a
think
nice
the founding.
entertaining part.
I think
Yeah.
the founding of the nation is really interesting. Not the
Yeah.
Puritan era. That
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah, I know,
I
yeah.
hate it, but you mentioned after Reconstruction or
Yeah.
Reconstruction on. What about that time period really captures you?
I guess it's just because it's more modern.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
true.
like the civil rights. I really like studying civil rights.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite topic.
We also know that you taught government for a few years.
Yep.
How is teaching government different from teaching U.S. history?
Oh, it's more boring.
More boring,
Yeah. Maybe more important.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, it's just it was a lot harder to try to make government interesting to my students than trying to make history interesting.
Did you see an uptick in interest during election years?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, current events and things like that are definitely always more exciting to
Yeah.
students, and you know, you can talk about them, and
Like bridges collapsing.
yeah, yeah,
Government. It's interesting. I think government is interesting, but it is more dry. Having a hands-on, I mean, anything related, having more hands-on experience with it, it is more interesting to get involved in
yeah.
than it is from the sidelines. Have you ever considered getting involved in local government?
You know what? It's funny. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Probably not anytime soon, but I was thinking about like the rec department board, because I was having a conversation the other day, and I guess I knew we had one, but I was like, when I was talking to, it was Greg Bunn I was talking to, you know, Greg. I was talking to him about it the other day, and I thought I might want to do something like that one day,
Right.
you know, because I mean, like my kids are in it, and I, you know, like I think it would be neat to be able to impact our small community.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of boards.
Yeah.
in Carroll that
Yeah.
you can get
So
appointed.
maybe.
Yeah. But
Maybe not.
Not like a elected office.
Yeah, I don't know about. I think that would be too stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to get elected and. Yeah, I don't know about
Keep
that.
your constituents happy.
Yeah.
Could be hard.
So what do you see yourself in 10 years?
Still teaching history. Still coaching basketball at some level.
Yeah.
You know,
Who's your best friend?
who's my best friend?
Mm-hmm.
Like here at school or
Right, in general life.
in your life.
That's a hard question. Megan Goad
Okay.
at the middle school,
Mm-hmm.
or Miss Wright here.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we haven't asked this question before, but I think we can differentiate it from best friend. Who do you trust the most?
Oh, that is different.
Yeah.
Here at school, I would trust Mr. Montgomery the most, or Miss Wright, of course, but or my husband.
That's always a good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Montgomery, I would agree.
Yeah.
Or Coach Montgomery.
Yes. Yes.
Very by the book.
Yep.
Role oriented.
Very black and white. Yeah.
But that can be a good thing sometimes when you're. So that's always good.
Yeah. And there are things that he won't share sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, because he won't. I mean, you might. I've asked him stuff before, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to tell you." I'm like, "All right, I respect that."
Yes, I mean very very blunt. Me and Ethan have asked him stuff before. Nope.
Yep.
I'm like, because I was.
Listen,
asking-
that applies to us too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's yeah.
A little bit of leeway here, please.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 18 now, and you know, some teams you can check yourself out and leave. So I'm an adult. I don't have a legal guardian. And I thought that was him for a second. I said I don't have a legal guardian. I just texted him. I said, "Can I leave early?" He just says, "No." I said, "All right." I guess that's that. But yeah, I mean, I do think sometimes you need that type of person
Yeah.
to trust. But
Yeah.
absolutely.
As we're wrapping up, we have a few questions that we like to ask every interviewee, and I'll go first. What advice do you have to someone who's interested in pursuing a career in maybe teaching or in history specifically?
Find a good teacher education program, first of all. And then, you know, just learn as much as you can. I mean, there's so much out there. And I mean, students ask me questions all the time. I have no idea what the answer to some of it is. I mean, there's so much just in one category. But yeah, just find a good program, find a good mentor, a good professor that you could go to when you need help or advice or whatever. And just learn as much as you can.
And this next question runs along the same vein as Ethan's. What advice do you have to young people just making their way in the world?
It's funny that you say that because I'm in, this is a long story, but it's a teacher sorority that I got into just a couple years ago. I got invited to join called Alpha Delta Kappa, and we had a meeting last night. And I had one of my former students who was very quiet, very timid, would never have imagined that her life would have taken this course. But she went to a Japanese academy, and she actually spent 4 months in Japan, living there, taking classes in Japan. And it was her life's dream. And years ago, and she comes from a very low income family that struggled, and she had a lot of challenges, but she achieved her dream and she did it. And so I think I always encourage my students to take advantage of every opportunity that they can, even if it seems like it's crazy or it's just out of reach, like just like go for it.
Yeah.
I just think that opportunities like that open doors that you never would have imagined, and you just have to, and any old average person can take advantage of those things.
That's pretty neat. And our last question, it's a bit of a cliche, but we like to ask every interviewee it, and that is, what is the meaning of life to you?
The meaning of life? Oh gosh, just trying to find happiness and living day to day and loving the people around you. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, Ms. Mitchell, it was an honor to speak with you today.
Well, thank you. You all too.
Means a lot to us.